Hello and welcome back to Lorehammer. I'm your host, Mark, and in this episode, we delve into the shadow fringes of the galaxy to look at some filthy fucking xenos. And to join me, we got Christian. Hey.
Hey, you don't have to say it like that.
Are you not filled with disgust when you look upon xenos? Or
I don't know. I think they
other
taste
emotions.
good.
They taste good. Stop eating the xenos, Jordan.
You got to eat the Hrud before the Hrud eat you. Yeah. We also got Jordan on the show, and we are shirt buddies. So ain't that nice? Yeah.
Oh, you got a black one too. I think the last time we both had a blue one.
Ooh, wow. We just like showing off them
Letting me
buys and
know.
tries.
I think it's our psyker abilities are getting enhanced and
You're
Oh man, I was listening to Joe Rogan had on some crazy guy talking about fucking remote viewing and stuff, and psychers are real. We are in the dawn of psycherism. Yeah.
Oh man, remote viewing is a whole can of worms there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only remote viewing I believe in is the CIA.
Watching us through the computer.
Through your computer monitors, yes, of course.
Yes, great. Hey, CIA guys. Well, we're here for some minor xenos. Honestly, I like minor xenos. It's just fun to shit on the minorities, I suppose, is the concept of that joke. Let's do some housekeeping before we do that, though. The Liber Malleus. Hey, you guys remember the Liber Malleus?
Yes.
Good. It's the official Lorehammer chapter. You guys are a part of it. We had the models. We built a full company of them. People basically bought into it. They got to name a model. I would paint it up, put it on the shelf. It was displayed in the studio. Over the years, people have asked me, when are we going to do another one? I think I'm finally ready to do another one. So all I'm going to say right now is called, this campaign is going to be called the Liber Malleus, the Sundering. So
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. I just got tingles.
What happened? Who broke them? I mean, that's too much. We can't say no more. Yeah, I'll tell more next week. Hopefully, we'll get some more details. But people have been asking me a lot. I think I came up with a cool idea, and excited to do more. But we'll let it fester for a second.
Fester, love it. And if you also want to join the Imperial Tide, you can always support the show through Patreon. And you can get an ad-free version of the show for only $2.50 or a video version for $5 and help support the Liber Malleus chapter, who seem to be going through something. We don't know yet, but they're going through something.
Identity crisis, I think.
Yeah. Are they falling to chaos? Who knows?
And if you are a patron, you can also access the live stream. We record all these episodes live and in the can. So we have a live chat room going on during the show, as you'll hear us intermittently interject one of the comments in the chat. And we also do call-in guests at the end of the show. So you can do that. So jump on the video with us. Join me for some whiskey and Warhammer as per usual. So yeah, excited to see you guys there.
Yes. Whiskey and Warhammer. I wonder what buzzword we should make you drink to tonight. Filthy would be a good one, probably. But honestly, like I said, I like the xenos. When I was writing the notes for these episodes, and you might have heard this disclaimer on the last one, I kind of wanted to write them as if I wrote from the perspective of xenos biologist Marcus, kind of cataloging for himself some minor xenos. And I tried to write them like what information do we actually need for these guys? Like, we need an overview, appearance, biology. I kind of went through a list of everything, and not all the minor xenos have these. So then I kind of figured out what I wanted. And then I went to the good old sources. I found all ones that, like, I think we could talk about these. These are pretty interesting. But they might not have all the categories. Like, what are the cultures and beliefs of a hive mind chrome bug? Well, maybe they don't have any. And maybe I just said that in the notes. But this episode has definitely a lot of speculation in it when I've written. But also, it's pretty clear. Like, I try not to make facts. I will say stuff like the Adeptus Mechanicus speculates such things. So keep your eye open for stuff like that to kind of know when it's me and when it's GW sources, kind of, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
In this episode, we're talking about 3 xenos. The first one, I'm curious how Jordan says it. I would say it the fall, but I think he would say it something like the Fra'al. But you're the special.
Fra'al. No, I would probably say it Fra'al.
You got to roll your R's. Fra'al.
Fra'al. Yeah.
Yeah, so we got them. We got the well-beloved, the Hrud. And the one that I'm very excited to talk about today is the Jindarii. I don't feel like most people have heard of that, but they're very neat. So that's what we're up to today in this episode.
Excellent. Well, shall we begin with our first species? Someone say it with me? Fra'al.
Fra'al.
Of all the vices you Imperials possess, I find the one you call greed the most fascinating. That you would sell your secrets, betray your kinblood, and even enslave your own race to us. And for what? Mere trinkets and toys. For the least of our crafts, most amusing. Master Vray, Fra'al Satrap. The Fra'al are an ancient and enigmatic xenospecies who have haunted the edges of human space since before the rise of the Imperium. They are infamous as pirates, black marketeers, and psychic manipulators, lurking in deep space aboard their vast void ships. Despite their long history, much about them remains a mystery. The Fra'al rarely engage in large-scale conflict, preferring to prey on isolated colonies, trade routes, and weakened worlds. Through ambushes, deception, and psychic trickery. Their interactions with other races are almost always predatory, driven by greed, survival, and a chilling indifference to the fates of other species. To the Imperium and the Order Xenos, the Fra'al represent an ancient threat that never fully vanishes, a dark undercurrent within the galaxy's already perilous seas. They are tolerated only insofar as their presence is difficult to eradicate, and their black market dealings, providing illicit weapons, forbidden artifacts, and psychic contraband, are an ongoing concern. Unlike more brutish Xenos, the Fra'al are coldly intelligent and calculating, preferring manipulation and corruption over open warfare. Their resilience, ancient lineage, and mastery of the warp have allowed them to survive in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium.
All right, so we're getting a little bit of a picture of these black marketeers, these traders, pirates, but the also key thing about them is these psychic manipulators where, yeah, you're going to be making deals with them, but they're manipulating you in the worst way. Like, yeah, of course I'll give you my soul for that bottle cap. Yeah, man, that's the best deal.
Yeah. They're also interesting that sounds like they're almost tolerated in the Imperium. Like, they're not shoot on sight level bad. They're still not great, but it almost sounds like they're a little bit above that.
Yeah, like they themselves don't necessarily pose a threat. Like, there's some like orcs where it's like if they're friendly and walking around, they're still spreading spores. Like, you can't have that. Or like the Hrud that we'll talk about later in this episode.
Just
like
existing as a threat.
Yeah, where these guys, yeah, they don't exist in that same kind of space, and they're not a terrifying like 6-limbed, 7-mouthed creature.
Yeah. I mean, you could maybe hypothesize too that they perhaps are useful in some ways. They're somewhat amoral. They are good at acquiring illicit weapons, artifacts, that kind of stuff. So maybe they're useful in some circumstances. But
all right, like with rogue traders, that I could see that being a very beneficial partnership. Rogue traders and these guys.
Yeah. And then another interesting quick note is a satrap from that quote I made earlier. Satraps are like they were Persian rulers, like provincial or state rulers, like regional rulers. So it's a cool little historical. Okay, I don't know if the name Fra'al has any meaning, but
yeah. So keep our eye out. That's the start of maybe some very small underlying theme.
Yeah. They almost, maybe we'll see. We'll have to read some more and find out. But they almost maybe seem gypsy coded. But let's keep going. Okay, appearance and biology. The Fra'al are a hunched and withered race, humanoid but warped and unsettling in appearance. Their long, thin bodies are frail-looking, with sunken features and elongated limbs. Their skin is typically pale, almost corpse-like, and their eyes are often described as deep-set and gleaming with unnatural intelligence. Fra'al physiology is adapted for life in void ships and low-gravity environments, making them less physically powerful than humans, but unusually dexterous and mentally potent. Biologically, the Fra'al are highly psychic by nature, their minds attuned to the Imperium in ways that seem almost instinctual. Over countless generations, their dependence on warp energies has reshaped their bodies and minds. Some Imperial xenobiologists theorize that prolonged exposure to the warp may have slowed their aging process significantly, allowing an individual Fra'al to live for centuries, perhaps even millennia. Their frail appearance belies the terrifying psychic power that lies dormant within each member of the species.
Yeah, so we'll put together why I wonder the Fra'al like to trade so much. Is it like a weird obsession? Like when I look at them, is this like psychically powerful, but like they're also like they live a long time, they have long lives. Like what do they need through trading, I wonder? They also have lots of good technology, as we'll come to learn too, but maybe it's just trading in general can be beneficial, doesn't matter. But
Yeah. I was doing some research on the name, and it looks like they were lifted or are like an homage to the Fra'al, Fraal, from a Alternity game, which was like an RPG made by Wizards of the Coast, but like sci-fi D&D.
okay.
So that looks like what it is a reference to, and that's where those kind of like gray alien pictures.
Yeah.
So whether or not
I was
these
thinking,
Fra'al are the inspiration, yeah.
I was thinking gray's like the kind that will beam you up and probe your butt. So,
Every alien likes to probe your butt. From predators to xenomorphs, they're all up in there.
Yeah, well, he's got a nice butt.
The face hugger doesn't go for your face, Jordan.
they have human king, I guess.
Oh, my goodness. All right, let's go into the powers and abilities. The most terrifying strength of the Fra'al lies in their mastery of psychic powers. Skilled in telepathy, illusion, and mind control, they use these abilities both offensively and defensively, sowing confusion and madness among their enemies. In combat, Fra'al warbands often paralyze or mislead their foes before a single shot is fired. Their psychic talents also allow them to manipulate the warp currents for faster-than-light travel, giving them unparalleled freedom of movement across the stars. In addition to their psychic prowess, the Fra'al are skilled technologists, crafting energy weapons, void ship systems, and devices that blend warpcraft with material science. They favor ambush tactics, using their psychic abilities to disable and confuse enemy vessels before boarding and slaughtering their crews. Their mastery for both mind and machine makes them uniquely dangerous foe, particularly because they prefer to avoid battles they cannot win, using guile, speed, and trickery to devastating effect. Oh, that would be a shitty fact to know about the race, and then you're in like a campaign against them, and you know they only are in campaigns they win. Yikes.
Bad news, guys. Yeah. It is interesting to note with how much psychic ability they have, which is again kind of linked to that gray alien inspiration, I guess. But there's not a lot of talk about warp contamination. Like, do they have a pretty good handle on their abilities? Are they prone to chaotic incursions? Who knows?
Yeah. I think we might find some more answers later on, but that's a good question to ponder for a minute.
Yeah. Well, I'm pondering. All right. Let's go into their history then. The Fra'al are among the oldest known xenos races, still active in the galaxy, with records of their existence stretching back before the Dark Age of technology. They were encountered by early human spacefarers, and during the Great Crusade, some Imperial forces clashed with Fra'al warbands in the outer voids. Despite these early defeats, the Fra'al adapted, becoming more elusive and shifting from territorial ambitions to piracy and illicit trade. Yeah. The implications, again, gray aliens, they're like among us right now, right? So they're ancient. They've always been around in the 40K universe, like in contact with humanity. Over the millennia, the Fra'al have carved out a niche for themselves as scavengers, raiders, and black market overlords. They are rumored to have sold forbidden artifacts to human rebels, rogue psychers, and chaos cults, further undermining the Imperium from within. Although largely forgotten by Imperial historians compared to more famous threats like the Orcs or Tyranids, the Fra'al remain a persistent menace, particularly in lawless regions where Imperial authority is weak or absent. Their continued survival speaks to their cunning, cruelty, and ancient knowledge. Yeah, that's really cool how they kind of leverage all the Imperium's enemies against them. And they're always kind of like a subtle menace in the background.
Yeah. But also like willing to make deals with you and trade cool trinkets at the same time. So it's fun. It's almost like though the Imperium's the ones you gotta look out for, more so than them. Because if they catch you with them fraternizing, woo.
You sound like you're a Fra'al envoy, Mark, just trying to seduce us with your trinkets.
Yeah, it does seem like they kind of like sort of more anarchic societies or less rule of law. They like to hide in the shadows, not be constrained by
A state.
a state or a bunch of mindless bureaucrats.
They've evolved
do what
past
they
that
want.
trope.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All
like
right.
a race like that like could mind control each other and like psychically read each other's thoughts. Like it'd be a very different vibe. People
Yeah,
would be
for
a lot friendly, I think.
True. All right, let's get into homeworld and the galactic geography. So the true homeworld of the Fra'al, if it still exists, is unknown to the Imperium. Some theorists believe they once ruled an ancient empire, now long crumbled into dust, leaving only scattered void ships and hidden enclaves drifting through the blackness between stars. Most Fra'al today are nomadic, living aboard massive ancient void ships known as Fra'al black ships that serve as both homes and warcraft. These void ships are usually encountered in the deep void, far from the stable, policed regions of the Imperium, places like the Halo Stars, the Eastern Fringe, and the wilderness spaces between Imperial sectors. The Fra'al thrive in these forgotten regions, launching raids against isolated Imperial colonies, merchant convoys, and even weaker xenos worlds. Though rare, Fra'al incursions have been recorded even deep into Imperial space, often leading to devastating psychic assaults before the aliens slip away into the warp, leaving only death and confusion behind.
Yeah, okay. So it seems like their form of resource gathering isn't like the demiurge of the last episode where they're going out and mining. They're going out and taking your shit and then turning it into their own technology and then selling it back to you. So it's an interesting way to gather resources for sure.
That's a good grift. That's a good grift.
Great grift.
Yeah. Yeah, should we get into their culture and beliefs?
The culture of the Fra'al revolves around survival, secrecy, and the ruthless accumulation of power and wealth. As the species deeply reliant on their psychic talent, they value mental acuity, cunning, and manipulation above brute strength. Honor and mercy are foreign concepts to them. Instead, success and deception are admired traits. Fra'al society seems to be organized loosely around powerful psychic elders or captains who rule their black ships, and trading enclaves with an iron will. Intrigue, backstabbing, and psychic domination are common among their own kind, as well as towards other species. Spiritually, the Fra'al do not worship gods in the human sense, but seem to revere the warp itself as a tool and fundamental force to be harnessed. They treat psychic powers as the ultimate expression of superiority. Some Imperial servants theorize that Fra'al believe existence is a competition of minds, where only those who master the warp and manipulate others are truly alive. Despite their callousness, they are often known to observe ancient rites aboard their ships, dark ceremonies that intertwine warp manipulation, soul harvesting, and binding the stolen life energy to fuel their vessels and artifacts.
Taking a more
Yeah.
sinister tone.
Yeah, all of a sudden when you have like warp technology, there's no way you're not just gonna dip your soul in a little soul binding. You know?
I mean, like, we know I hate to say the rules of the warp, but in air quotes, but yeah, like even for the Imperium, like there has to be some kind of soul sucking ritual. The Eldar have it, or Dark Eldar at least have it. So and any Chaos Servant knows that they have to trade something to access warp power. So even though these guys seem more secular, that element still exists that they still have to fulfill to dominate the warp.
Yeah, like secular because like they're not making deals with the chaos gods for power, or to fuel their ships. It's more just like feeding the warp souls and using the raw energy,
Right. The same way they feed souls to the Emperor, right? Like it's a practical thing. Well, I guess there is a religious aspect in the Imperium, but for these guys, it's definitely more practical, just reality.
Skeleton says, reminds me of the Chaos Unbound idea that was being talked about a few weeks ago. I have an episode worked out, it's almost done, where I've kind of formalized the Chaos Unbound. And after going through all the minor xenos in prep for this, I found a couple that really fit well. This one, fits pretty good for sure with that Unbound. They weren't the best, but they definitely fit well with that concept of not undivided, where you're worshiping a god or gods. You're just using the warp as a tool of power.
Yeah, and I don't know how much they know about the entities that live in the warp, but maybe again from like a secular perspective, they're just like very scientific in how they assess them. These aren't demons or like anything special. They're just an entity that exists in the warp, like an animal kind of thing, right? Like they can observe it, they can study it, they can avoid it or know how to deal with it so that they're not corrupted by it, but they don't recognize it through a religious lens.
I mean I'd still be very curious just to dive into like their lore if they ever wrote more lore on them, just where their traditions and like religious beliefs come from, seeing as they are one of the oldest races as well in the 40k universe. That must be like if they do still carry out some of these ancient rites, those must be extremely old, so
Yeah.
But
there's an interesting point in like how far back do you want to remember? Like with the Eldar, we really want to go back like 10,000 years for their history, even though they have a 60 million year history.
Yeah.
But they definitely would have some dark old stuff going on for sure.
Well, and were they hypothetically like a great power in the galaxy at one point, or?
Well, maybe this is a thought. Like they very much almost look like those aliens, like that we kind of think of, the Greys. Do we think this is kind of them? And if that is the case, then maybe they did have an empire that kind of faded away, or maybe they were just weirdo creeps. Who knows? I don't know.
Probing butts
Butts on Portera.
Maybe that is their ancient rite, is just probing.
I was gonna say that's why it's dark and not spoken of.
All your asses are ours. We made a deal with your four daddies.
Yeah, just because they have a big empire doesn't also mean they have to be galactically dominant. Like we already have a lot of that. We have an age where the Necron were on top, and the old ones were on top, and the Eldar were on top. Like. And while like that's also true of history, like there are so many empires that were super dominant, but they also existed at the same time as other empires that they either didn't come into contact with or didn't know existed.
Sure,
So
yeah.
like multiple things can be true at the same time.
That's true.
Yeah. But there's only one truth, the Imperial truth. Everything else is a lie.
So jot that down.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into their technology. Fra'al technology is ancient, advanced, and deeply intertwined with their psychic abilities. Their void ships are immense, labyrinthine constructs, powered in part by warp energies and in part by arcane technologies unknown to the Adeptus Mechanicus. Their weapons often blend conventional energy-based designs with psychic amplifiers, creating devastating effects such as mind-shattering blasts, reality-distorting fields, and warp-fueled weaponry. Their starships are known for their ability to elude Imperial detection and for striking with terrifying precision. Despite their obvious technological prowess, the Fra'al rarely share or mass-produce their creations. Every piece of technology is built with artistry and personalization, often laden with psycho-reactive elements keyed to the user's mind. They also excel in creating powerful psychic devices capable of manipulating thought, emotion, and perception across vast distances. Their technology is as much a psychological weapon as a physical one, making them uniquely dangerous opponents even compared to other ancient xeno civilizations. So, yeah. Masters of psychic energy and masters of technology. These guys are just a bunch of Mary Sues.
Yeah, like what's keeping them down? Maybe they have like long
Numbers.
reproduction rates. Yeah.
Yeah, to me it sounds like numbers more than anything. It's cool that they combine physical and psychic destructive power into their weapons, and it's also cool that it's limited to them. So like if you kill one and try and take their gun, like it just won't work for you. Like,
do you think if maybe a psyker picked it up,
again,
could
like
learn to use one? Maybe
I think it would take effort to crack the code or however that would work, because it does say that it's keyed to the individual. So even another psyker trying to kind of like the spears of the custodies, right? That's like genetically locked to the user. But who's to say like a psyker couldn't quote unquote hack, like mentally hack or override whatever protection system it uses?
Sure.
All right, let's get into some of their weapons. The Fra'al glass knives. They are a jagged, dagger-like blade that looks as though they were made from a single smoky crystal. Created by the legendary Fra'al, they are known for their strength and are sharp enough to split ceramite. They constantly maintain their sharpness by continually fracturing tiny shards from the edges of these splinters. And these splinters are infamous, for working their way into wounds, causing agonizing injuries. These are used for probing, for poking around in dark crevasses.
A very specialized tool, this one. Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
It's a cool blade that always is perfectly sharp, but eventually the blade wears away to nothing. So kind of fun.
Yeah. The Fra'al battle cruisers. They're advanced spacecraft that used by the Fra'al race, deployed into deep space and used to protect their worlds from orbit or conduct raids in pairs. These mysterious ships are equipped with deadly ether cannons. The most promising reality for the Imperium regarding these ships is they are sparse in number. Ether cannon. They are a deadly weapon used by the mysterious Fra'al race, most often equipped to their battle cruisers. These cannons fire a beam of pulsed energy. The ether field in these beams corrode the hulls of spacecraft, ignoring their shields. These weapons also produce the side effect of overloading the shields of the target, allowing the Fra'al battlecruiser to follow up the attack with a volley of lance fire. Even the Eldar have found this terrifying weapon to be a threat to their ship. Man, it's surprising with tech like that and weaponry like that, they're not a much bigger player.
Yeah, what is that hiccup? You could have the small numbers, but if you've got crazy tech,
yeah, but in theory you would need people to man your spacecraft, and maybe the spacecraft
Sure.
themselves take time to build.
What,
Like,
they
okay,
haven't figured out AI, Christian?
well, first of all,
I
I haven't seen anything about AI, first of all, and maybe they learned the lesson that humanity would learn later, that AI is not to be trifled with, first of all. Jordan. Secondly,
First of all.
again, building those ships probably is a very labor intensive. Like, all their tech seems to be like artisanal, which means like it's very time and resource heavy probably to build. Yeah, so it's
I mean, you could
Sure.
maybe they like to be more low key and under the radar, so they mostly use something like an ether cannon, primarily defensively, only in times that they need to like whoop ass and disincentivize people from poking at them.
The other thing I feel like we haven't fully found is like this race's motivation. And that would be a big factor in if you have a galactic empire or not, because maybe they're just not driven like that at all.
Yeah, maybe like true anarcho-capitalists, they have a very strong non-aggression principle. And,
oh, I love them already. They can probe my butt any day.
You give yourself willingly.
One final thought before we move on. That ether cannon is such a cool thought of like you shoot this like dark energy, warp energy, and the ship kind of just like melts and corrodes away with dark warp energy. Fucking cool. All right, the military. The Fra'al do not engage in traditional warfare. Instead, they rely on hit-and-run raids, psychic sabotage, and precision strikes. These are not the Fra'al you are looking for. Is that psychic sabotage, you think? Or do I gotta wave my hand for it to be considered a threat? We'll find out. Their military doctrine revolves around crippling an enemy's will to fight before an actual combat even begins. Using mass psychic illusions, mind control, and telepathic attacks, Fra'al forces often create chaos among enemy ranks, turning soldiers against each other, sowing despair, and convincing entire crews to surrender without even a shot being fired. Boarding actions and ambushes are a common tactic, often executed with swift brutality. When forced into battle, Fra'al forces prefer to fight defensively from within their ships or fortified enclaves, making extensive use of psychic defenses, energy barriers, and labyrinth layouts to disorient attackers. Their warriors are not soldiers in a traditional sense, but are psychically enhanced killers who wield warp-charged weapons and devastating mental attacks. Every Fra'al engagement is methodically planned to maximize psychological terror and minimize direct risk, showing their ancient, calculated approach to survival. I don't know if they know the perfect time to strike, the chat's wondering. The nice thing is with the Fra'al glass blade, it's always sharp, so it's always the perfect time to strike. You never have to worry about a dull moment, per se.
Pun intended.
Yeah. Interesting. There's almost like a primitive survivalist mindset, where like in primal times, like you wouldn't want to get into fights, A, that you couldn't win, and B, where you might even get injured enough to cripple your survival, which kind of seems like it's their same kind of mindset of like, you know what, not worth it, or if we do have to fight, we want to obliterate the enemy completely so that they don't pose a risk to us anymore. But they're not taking unnecessary risks, and like they'd rather scare you than actually have to fight, because there's always a risk in fighting. So
Yeah.
Definitely the vibes I'm picking up anyways. All right, let's get into their galactic relations. The Fra'al have few formal relations with other major races of the galaxy. To the Imperium of Man, they are considered vile xenos pirates and are exterminated whenever possible, though the Imperium's reach often falls short in the lawless voids where the Fra'al operate. They maintain no alliances with the Orcs, Eldar, or Tau, viewing all other species primarily as prey, customers, or obstacles. However, pragmatic dealings, such as selling weapons or artifacts to desperate forces, have been noted, particularly through clandestine contacts. Interestingly, the Fra'al have shown a level of indirect cooperation with human renegades, chaos cultists, and unsanctioned rogue traders, usually in pursuit of profit rather than ideology. Their presence in the galaxy is like that of a parasitic shadow, opportunistic, ever adapting, and rarely seen in great numbers. Even other ancient races, such as the Eldar, view the Fra'al with disdain or fear, knowing them to be cunning manipulators who thrive in the unstable eddies of the galaxy's endless wars.
Yeah, interesting. I've heard a lot about population collapse and just how there's not going to be a lot of people to work stuff, so we just won't be able to get anything. So yeah, with the Frall having such low population, it seems such low numbers, so spread out. Yeah, it just seems like they don't have any manufacturing. So like their whole kind of spot. I'm just trying to figure out their motivation. Like, why do they not only attack everyone they see? It seems like, or not everyone they see. Like if they have no friends, but they also will trade with everyone. They're very flip-floppity like that. Like one day you're just as likely to get raided by them, so they steal your stuff, and the next day you're just as likely to have them sell you other alien stuff.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that, like what they see everyone as lesser, right? Either as prey or an obstacle. So they're willing to like engage in whatever behavior maximizes their survival.
And I guess maybe that is it. Like literally the end of the day, it is survival. Like we don't think of that as an end goal, but it definitely is.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. Especially in like a cold, uncaring universe, like you could take the approach the Imperium does is just like let's slug it out and just through sheer strength of will and numbers survive this cold, uncaring galaxy. You know, others might have a higher ideological pursuit, like the Tau. And these guys just seem to be survivalists, maybe.
Yeah, like life is long for them. You know, it's I guess you don't want to die if you on year 5 if you can live to 10,000. You know.
Yeah.
Sure. Cool.
All right. Let's get into the cold trade. The Frall are heavily involved in the cold trade, the black market dealing of xenos artifacts, forbidden technology, and other illicit goods beyond imperial law. Their ancient void ships often serve as traveling marketplaces, peddling warp-tainted relics, psychic amplifiers, alien weaponry, and devices forbidden by the Adeptus Mechanicus. Through secretive networks of rogue traders, criminal cartels, and corrupt officials, Fra'al goods find their way into the hands of smugglers, heretics, and even rebellious imperial nobles. The involvement in the cold trade makes the Fra'al both dangerous and invaluable to various factions operating in the shadows of imperial space. The items they sell often come at terrible costs: psychic corruption, warp taint, or technological heresy that can doom entire worlds. Imperial authorities have declared death sentences for any human found dealing with Fra'al merchants, but enforcement is difficult in the far-flung reaches of space. The Fra'al thus continue to profit from humanity's greed and desperation, quietly undermining the Imperium from within.
Cool. Yeah, the cold trade is such a cool kind of topic there. When writing notes, I kind of clicked on a link and found myself in a whole episode worth of notes there. So very fun. The Frall are oh, I got a cat trying to come in. Someone else say something.
Yeah. I'll jump in here. Jordan, you might not like this, but I also get like a strong, like I was kind of joking about the anarcho-capitalist approach to them, but this seems like someone who is not a fan of that kind of political persuasion, let's say, superimposing that belief onto them. Like this is how they would see someone from that angle. Tell me if you see it too. I'm just getting that.
I don't know. I don't know if I totally see it. I mean, if they were like something like an ANCAP, they would probably have a very strong belief in private property, which would tend towards more on the greed side of the spectrum. So yeah, maybe they wouldn't totally subscribe to that, but I don't know. It's hard to tell with just how they're described and presented exactly.
And there, yeah,
Even
there's not a
how
law
society
we're
works.
working with here. Yeah, fair. But that is kind of the feeling I had. But I was gonna make another point too, and it's escaped me. But Mark, you can jump back in here if you want.
The whole how do they fight psychic corruption? Because now we've got examples of them handing off items and it's corrupting other people, but they seem to be fine. And I was kind of thinking, like, okay, so you got this psychic race that's constantly communicating with each other, constantly trying to like dominate each other too, it sounds like, through the force of mind. And maybe that's just enough. That in and of itself is that constant. They're testing each other all the time. So then when the warp comes in, they're like, whatever, fuck it, our races can deal with that. Maybe the other thought I had was maybe they all collectively form something like the hive mind, where it's like all their minds together shout back, you know, kind of keep them safe from the warp.
That's
I don't know-
interesting, but I don't know
if it
there's
would be a hive mind. Maybe more like some sort of collective consciousness, but not exactly like a hive mind. Where
Yeah,
everyone
that's a
has
better way to
same
say it.
mind. Yeah.
Yeah. I just don't know that there's that vibes with the rest of the way they operate. Like they're even in competition with each other.
Yeah, so I think that's
competition would be weird for them to do that. Not to say they can't or wouldn't, and I get like that would be a good strategy, would be to, you know, unite against a bigger foe. But I don't see it in a text. Like that's kind of a big reach, I think.
Yeah, so then it kind of goes towards that first one where it's like, yeah, they are battling each other with their minds all the time. So other invasions they can fend off.
Unless also maybe they're just good enough that they can just tell off demons and stuff, and it's not even an issue to them. Like they have that much of a mastery, almost like the old ones or something, where granted the warp wasn't the same state it was when the old ones were around, but you know, they have just such a mastery over the warp that is just a non-issue for them.
Yeah.
Skeleton in the comments says, I imagine if you're part of a long-lived race, interacting just enough to survive but not enough to be a threat. They've seen galactic species rise and fall. Maybe they just don't want to rise endlessly. Yeah, that could be a motivation.
I mean, they did at one point possibly have an empire. So yeah, either they learned their lesson, they already got too close to the sun once, and they're like, nope, that's not, I'm not doing that again.
Yeah.
And they have encountered the Imperium, especially during the Great Crusade, to like devastating effect. So, yeah, I did say
more empires, more problems. That's what I've
right. Exactly, it's just not worth the effort.
Yeah,
your military just drains your coffers, and it's not very good for. Okay. I did say earlier on that it looks like they were more tolerated by the Imperium, but that was obviously very wrong. It's just the fact that they're always operating in those hard to reach places that lets them get away with it. It looks like more than anything.
Yeah, and like a hive ganger, they're gonna be fun to trade with. It's, you know, they're dealing with the scum typically of the Imperium.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
the actual authorities do see them as a threat and a problem.
Yeah. I mean, maybe tolerated is overstating the fact. It's they would wipe them out, but if it was worth the effort, right? Like really the Imperium's got to focus on, you know, Tyranids and orcs and whatnot, not
too many bigger problems.
Yeah, not following these guys. But if they run into them, they probably would just wipe them out. Like, no questions asked.
Get out of here, filthy xenos. This is our galaxy now. Representation in both mini and rule form. Mini wise, I was thinking there's some fun like mini games that have great alien models that you could use and convert and try to do some fun stuff. Like Attack of Mars, I think had a game at one point.
Mars Attacks.
Mars Attacks. Yeah. So, you know, you could definitely find the gray alien things. We don't really know a lot of them. And thankfully, like, honestly, this would be like a kill team size scale. Like, we're not seeing armies of these guys.
Yeah. I actually, from Mantic Games, they have I don't know if they still do, but they had a game called Dreadball, where they have a bunch of different alien races. And specifically, I'm thinking of a group called the Pelgar Mystic Jidwan. Very long name, but they very much give that gray alien. I think they're perfect. Very slender, very classic gray alien, but also kind of a unique look to them. but that would be my go-to if I built these guys.
Yeah,
And they're
okay.
small. It's like it's Blood Bowl and sci-fi Blood Bowl. So
Yeah.
really all they have for models is a small team size.
Cool.
So perfect for that kill team.
Yeah. They also have Battlefleet Gothic stuff. Like we talked about their spacecraft, and you can actually buy their spacecraft. It was a mini at one point in one of the Battlefleet Gothic games. So rules wise on tabletop, man, I kind of felt like either Tyrannid just because of that whole anti-hive mind warp thing that we were talking about and all the warp powers that they use. But I don't know, man. Like, I feel like these guys are pretty unique and you'd really have to come up with your own rule set. I don't think they would necessarily blend into any of the main factions and like just hijack some rules. It'd be tough.
I agree with you, but also definitely probably Eldar Farseers or Warp, or what do they call them, Warlocks.
Yeah, and maybe since you're only doing like a kill team size, maybe it is fine just to kind of
one unit.
Yeah, the Warlock and that Warlock squad or whatever. Okay, you know what? That would be it. You're right.
Yeah.
If you want to
Psychic
represent them,
powers,
use that.
tech. Yeah.
Some close combat swords and stuff. So very cool. All right.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
Glass shards. Yeah.
Cool.
Excellent. Are we ready to move on to the next Xenos?
Yeah.
This Xenos group really are filthy Xenos by every definition. And also sounds like a fan favorite, the Hrud. The Hrud are a decrepit and ancient Xenos race, infamous for their stealth, decay-inducing presence, and near mythical elusiveness. Scattered throughout the galaxy, the Hrud dwell in the dark and forgotten places, building labyrinthine warrens beneath hive cities, abandoned starships, and forsaken worlds. Their existence is largely parasitic, leeching off the energy and life of surrounding civilizations, while remaining hidden from the broader light of galactic history. Most Imperial citizens, if they have ever heard of the Hrud at all, know them only as figures of horror and superstition, living blights whispered of in fearful tales. The Imperium regards the Hrud as vermin of the highest order, launching purge campaigns known as Hrud cleansings whenever an infestation is discovered. Yet despite the Imperium's efforts, the Hrud persist and even thrive in the shadows. Their numbers are unknown, their society fragmented yet persistent, and their impact often catastrophic. Entire hive cities have fallen into ruin due to unseen Hrud infestations, and some inquisitors suspect the Hrud's influence extends far deeper into galactic decay than anyone dares to admit.
I feel like this is the prime example of like this is like the poster boys for the Xenos Xenos of why not to deal with any Xenos. If you deal with them, your cities crumble, you get old and decrepit, everything looks like shit. Like you just don't want to deal with them. Let's just not deal with Xenos. Look at this guy. He looks like a pile of muck.
Yeah, they're cool how they like are omnipresent, like even within the Imperium. It's just a matter of like discovery. We'll get into it later for sure, or maybe I'll save it for later. Sorry.
All right, let's do appearance and biology. The true appearance of the Hrud is notoriously difficult to define due to their natural ability to distort light and warp perception around themselves. Those few who have glimpsed them describe the Hrud as hunched, elongated humanoids, draped in rags and cloaks, with flexible, almost boneless frames. Their skin is leathery and diseased in appearance, and their features are often hidden beneath hoods or masks. Hrud physical forms seem almost mutable, as if their very bodies resist their clear definition by normal vision. Biologically, the Hrud are deeply tied to entropy and decay. They exude an aura of degeneration that accelerates the aging and decomposition of nearby materials and living beings. Their bodies naturally emit low-level warp energies, contributing to their ability to distort time, space, and matter around them. Some records even describe Hrud migrations, events where massive numbers of Hrud move as a devastating tide, leaving entire regions of space aged, crumbling, and lifeless in their wake. They're almost like warp zombies of some kind. They just kind of suck all the life out of everything. And they seem very Nurgle too, Nurgle coded.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that they suck the energy out of people, but they're not like vampires where they're using that energy. They're just wasting it.
Yeah,
just rotting and yeah.
They're just like a warp dump.
Yeah, exactly. Powers and abilities. The Hrud possess terrifying innate powers that center around entropy, stealth, and time manipulation. Their presence accelerates decay, rotting structures, and aging organic matter at a supernatural rate. In battle, Hrud warriors can fade in and out of sight, striking from the shadows with devastating efficiency before vanishing once more. Some reports suggest that Hrud technology on their own latent psychic ability or their own latent psychic abilities can bend time itself, causing enemies to wither and collapse as if centuries had passed in an instant. The fucking time gun. You get shot by a time gun and all of a sudden you're a grandpa and you're like, my life! I wasted it on Warhammer! In addition to physical decay, the Hrud are masters of guerrilla tactics, ambush, and sabotage. Their ability to remain unseen combined with their degenerative influence makes them ideal infiltrators and assassins. Some ancient Hrud, known as the Ka, may possess even greater powers, capable of wielding time warping abilities on a massive scale. And that's spelled Q-A-H, the Ka. They'll come up again later. Imperial scholars fear that the Hrud can that if the Hrud ever unified their strength, they could become a force capable of eroding entire civilizations into dust without ever engaging in open warfare. Yeah, you get these like massive like Hrud migrations where even though they don't touch down on your planet, they're passing by it and it could still fuck up your planet.
Going back to that time gun you were talking about, Mark, I kind of picture Indiana Jones when they drink out of the wrong chalice.
Yeah,
the guy just kind of like ages and then rots away to dust. Like that's what I imagine.
Perfect.
Right. The Sask. The term Sask refers to the basic social group of a Hrud society, a loose communal warren centered around survival and secrecy. Each Sask functions almost like a mobile organic entity. Clusters of Hrud dwelling in the forgotten places of hive cities, abandoned star fortresses, or deep beneath ancient ruins. These communities are highly insular, communicating through a combination of pheromones, psychic impressions, and complex visual signals, rather than any spoken language comprehensible to outsiders. The Sask exist in a state of constant tension, balancing cooperation with fierce territorial instincts. While Sask rarely grow large, when one does, the Hrud within it become an unstoppable infestation, slowly rotting out the structures that inhabit until collapse is inevitable. When a Sask becomes too populous, a Hrud migration may occur, a slow and terrible exodus where hundreds of thousands of Hrud drift toward the new prey, carrying decay and collapse with them across the stars. Yeah, so they just kind of turn into little infestation colonies and then grow and grow and grow. And then when they become too big, they kind of splinter off and find new, cleaner grounds to infest.
Yeah. The Sask also refers to like not only that society or that kind of cluster of them, but also the effect that cluster makes, that kind of time dilation, that rot effect is also called the Sask. They also sometimes call it the sea mist. C is an SEE.
All right, let's get into their history. The Hrud claim origins stretching back to the ancient galactic history, possibly predating the rise of the Eldar Empire. Some Xenos lore even links them distantly to the Ka, an Eldar race, or a former higher form of Hrud that wielded far greater power. ancient text, now nearly myth, suggests the Hrud once served or fought alongside older races during the war in heaven, though the truth is obscured by the passage of aeons and the Hrud's own degenerate decline. In more recent history, the Hrud are largely remembered through the disasters they leave behind. Hive cities reduced to crumbling ruins without explanation, space stations abandoned after sudden, inexplicable aging of all systems and crews. The worlds rendered uninhabited by unseen forces. Attempts by the Imperium to wipe them out have been largely unsuccessful. The Hrud are not a centralized power, but a dispersed surviving pestilence, quietly gnawing at the edges of the galaxy's crumbling civilizations. They're almost like more like just a bacteria, or pestilence, as it says in the script. Just like a disease that spreads through osmosis and through just like natural selection. There's almost it's sort of mindless, right? Like they just go wherever they can find life to suck from.
Yeah. They don't care about tracking their history, and if they did, it eroded, so they're just like, whatever, we're just fester.
Yeah.
Just roll around in the filth. As we mentioned, they are old, they are ancient. Oh, this comment actually is pretty good before I read the next part. Skeleton says they could just park themselves next to stars and make them go supernova. So isn't that a fun thought? And then then you blow up enemies' stars for their homeworlds.
Yeah, but that almost seems like too strategic for them. Like that's almost not even how they act. Like
too much foresight.
They're not even thinking like that,
Also, you would think they might get caught in the blast too if they have to age it to supernova.
Yeah. Finicky timer. Wait 1 second too long and goes sideways. The myth of the mirror devils. According to the Hrud's religion, their race were created by the Salhai, who intended them to bask in the sun and be fruitful, but were changed into a nocturnal scavenger race by the god Cow, foresaw the dangers that they would face. Hrud religion worships a benevolent pantheon of god known as the Salhai, or the most ancient, including Ka. And I've said these different every time I've said it, so that's fun for people listening and not reading like I am. As well as a horned hunter, a red-handed figure, a laughing jester, and a hammer-wielding artisan. Maybe I'll read those again because they're interesting who they kind of worship and stuff. A horned hunter, a red-handed figure, a laughing jester, and a hammer-wielding artisan. I think a couple of those kind of line up with some Eldar pantheon stuff. Their gods entered into a war against the Yamkor Cow, or the Mirror Devils, which saw all Salhai but Cow either slain, crippled, or forced to flee. Their legends say that only a single member of the Salhai exists and still exists, known as the Ka, or he who lingers. Around 500,000 years ago, Ka is said to have told the Hrud that he had other great works to attend to and disappeared. However, it is said that he would return to reunite them in the time of Rahid Seek, which was appointed time when the tribes would come together for the final battle against the Yam Cow. All right, so this is
sound like.
Yeah, this is just a bunch of idiot bendies trying to tell you what the war in heaven was, trying to tell you about the old ones. They're making up stupid names that no one can say.
I'd laugh so hard if their version is actually the right version. It was everyone else that were idiots.
Yeah. But yeah, you kind of get that same story where the Salhai are the old ones. They are in war with the mirrored ones, the Necron. Eventually they go into hiding. It's rumored that some survive. Eventually that one goes missing. Pretty standard myth, just told by a filthy bendy.
Yeah. And obviously their pantheon lines up with the Eldar pantheon pretty well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder back then when they were supposed to bask in the sun and be fruitful, if them and then the Eldar could have got along, or them and other races, or it just who fucking knows at that point? That's too much.
Yeah. I do like when they do that, when they tell the same story through the lens of different cultural groups. It's almost kind of
Yeah.
like the flood, Noah and the flood stories, and like how
Ah,
universal they are spread around the world.
yeah,
Same,
yeah.
same kind of vibes. Everyone has like some kind of historical memory about the war in heaven. It's just interpreted different ways by the
Yeah.
species. All right. Let's get into
One more thought on that.
Yeah.
I guess that would be, there's some dangerous threats in the galaxy, but basically it probably boils down to Tyranid and Necron. And how do you deal with the Necron? Well, you park some Hrud outside of them and hope to goodness that can like outdo the Necron's nanobodies or whatever,
Yeah,
necrodermis.
constant healing and constant decay.
Yeah,
Going head to head. Who will outlast the other?
it's a great way to spend a weekend.
Hrud Necron 2025. All right, let's get into the homeworld and galactic geography. No confirmed Hrud homeworld exists within Imperial records. It is widely believed that they abandoned or lost their origin point long ago, if it ever existed at all. Some inquisitorial scholars speculate that the Hrud may originate from the ancient Imperium infected regions of the galaxy, places so deeply entwined with the warp that the stable life could not flourish without mutation. Their presence is heavily concentrated in the segmentum obscurus, the eastern fringe, and areas surrounded by the halo stars. Regions where Imperial control is weakest. There's kind of a theme going on here. Anywhere where the Imperium's control kind of wanes, you can see the rise of these different Xenos factions, which
Build
also
collects.
Yeah. But like honestly, and that also speaks, I think a few episodes back, we talked about like mindset of the Great Crusade and like purging Xenos. Like a lot of these were the Xenos that were being purged because they were a problem and they were everywhere. And they, now that the Imperium has like this established core, they kind of keep it into the shadows, right?
Yeah. No, you may not have a Hrud waifu. Sorry, not allowing it. The Imperium will not allow it.
So nasty, but I kind of want to do a body pillow of a Hrud and sell it online.
I think it'd be pretty comfortable, to be honest, as you just age.
All right. Whenever human or Xeno civilizations establish footholds in deep space, their Hrud eventually follow, burrowing into forgotten decks, underground maintenance tunnels, and derelict void ships. They prefer ancient, decaying environments where their natural powers of entropy hasten collapse. The Hrud's galactic distribution is wide but hidden, like a cancer growing out of sight until it is too late to cure. Some fear their migrations are increasing in frequency, heralding a time when entire sectors may fall, not by war, but by slow, inevitable dissolution. It's also kind of like the decaying of the Imperium personified too. Like the concept of decay is always something the Imperium is fighting against internally, just without the Hrud, but then you layer on the Hrud as like this actual manifestation of that same constant entropy that the Imperium is battling with.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into their culture and beliefs. The culture of of Hrud is ancient, deeply spiritual, and shrouded in layers of mystery and decay. Their society revolves around survival, memory, and reverence for entropy as a natural force. They live communally in huddled enclaves known as migrations, bound together by ancient rituals, songs, and ceremonies, whose meanings are largely forgotten even to themselves. Despite their degenerate appearance, they possess a strong sense of kinship and loyalty to their fellow Hrud, following spiritual leaders called the Sask during migrations. Their beliefs suggest a profound mourning for their lost past, and their rituals often reflect a desperate effort to preserve dying traditions from a time when they were a more ordered and powerful race. Memory and history play an enormous role in Hrud belief systems. They see themselves as guardians of ancient knowledge, maintaining fragments of cosmic truth inherited from the time of the Ka. Their religion is not built around progress or conquest, but rather the endurance of memory against the inevitable decay of time. They accept entropy as death and death not as enemies, but as sacred and inevitable aspects of existence, and view their own slow collapse with grim, almost reverent inevitability. To the Hrud, survival is resistance against universal decay, even as they contribute to it themselves.
Yeah. Fuck, how do you do anything with when everything you touch just like corrodes and turns to dust and you're just like, ugh, filthy. The one interesting thing about these guys, we've kind of briefly mentioned it, that the Ka disappeared 500,000 years ago. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the Ka, but I want you to keep this line in your mind while I read about them. Their belief suggests a profound mourning for their lost past, and the ritual often reflects a desperate effort to preserve dying traditions. So it sounds a lot like the Hrud were not always like the way they are now. The Ka are ancient entities once worshipped or possibly even created by the Hrud in a distant past that predates the Imperium by millions of years. Described in fragmentary records as godlike beings of immense power and knowledge, the Ka were revered by the Hrud as divine benefactors and rulers. Some accounts suggest the Ka shaped the early Hrud civilization, providing structure, unity, and technological advancement. The fall of the Ka, whether through betrayal, war, or cosmetic disaster, is often seen by scholars as the catalyst for the Hrud's degeneration into their current nomadic and decaying state. In Hrud culture, the Ka occupy a semi-mythical status, part past, part lost faith. The Sask-Kask may still perform ancient rites in honor of the Ka, preserving fragmented memories for their worship. It's unclear if the Ka were true gods, powerful psychers, or advanced xenos beings, but the depth of loss the Hrud feel suggests their collapse was catastrophic. Some inquisitors speculate the echoes of the Ka's ancient psychic or technological influence can still be seen in the Hrud's instinctive mastery over entropy and time. To the Hrud, remembering the Ka is a form of survival, a refusal to allow the final death of an ancient race. Yeah. So that's fun. Like we get a couple more little pieces about the Ka there. They definitely seem very old one, willing to help, and then you almost wonder what the old ones were trying to do with the race of the Hrud before, while they're still actively like involved. You know, was this power of their Sask, their Seabisk entropy thing? Was that supposed to be something they could like master and turn on and off? Did they have another point completely? Were they made just for like that joke about the Necron to try to degrade them, set up a bunch of Hrud next to them and work it that way back in the war? Hard to say.
Yeah. I mean, if we believe their own myths, they did have a almost opposite existence when they were created, right? To bask in the sun, and they've turned to nocturnal creatures, right? Like it's like what would be the opposite of what they are.
Yeah.
Opposite of entropy, like very ordered. The orcs too had a similar effect, right? Where the Kork were a lot more advanced than what orcs are now, and the orcs are just like a devolved form of what they used to be. So the Hrud very well could have been in that same vein as well. But
it does seem
hard
like
to say.
It's also an interesting juxtaposition how they sort of cause death and entropy everywhere they go, yet they're trying desperately to preserve their own race and history and sense of themselves. But I wonder if it's almost like they can't even help how they are, and it's sort of this weird, like you're losing yourself, you know.
Are you seeing
as
yourself in
a
the story, Jordan?
It's like having Alzheimer's and knowing it. And that early start where it's just like, it's not good.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
It's a pretty horrific approach, but it's very 40K. Love it. All right, let's talk about their technology. The Hrud's technology is a bizarre fusion of scavenged material and ancient knowledge so advanced that it borders on incomprehensible. Most Imperial observers mistake Hrud weapons and devices for mere junk, but closer examination reveals ingenious adaptations and ancient designs infused with warp-based energies. Hrud technology tends to function in ways that exploit entropy, corrosion, or temporal instability, and many of their tools and weapons induce rapid aging, molecular breakdown, or outright spatial distortions. Even their most basic equipment reflects their fundamental nature, slow decay weaponized into an art form. Despite their degeneracy, there are hints that the Hrud once possessed a highly advanced technological civilization under the guidance of the Ka. Some Hrud relics, particularly those carried by the Sask, show signs of pre-imperial craftsmanship capable of feats beyond the understanding of even the Adeptus Mechanicus. Modern Hrud often adapt whatever they scavenge, integrating Imperial, Orc, and Tau technology into their designs in ways that seem patchwork but hide a deep underlying logic rooted in entropy manipulation. Their true technological capabilities are likely far greater than the Imperium realizes, masked by their scavenger lifestyle and the disintegration that follows their migrations. I was going to mention, like often forces of decay are kind of villainous in how they're depicted, like, Nurgle or the Hrud. And I was going to mention that, like, often biomes actually need, scavengers and I forget whatever bioforms like actually break down like rotting material and stuff. Like they're necessary for biology and existence to continue. So they're not necessarily like a negative thing. They're almost like well, not almost. They are necessary for a healthy ecology. And I was gonna say maybe that was kind of the role that they were to play, but it does sound like they're at odds with that existence though. Like they don't appreciate it. So
now this is just crazy speculation, so don't write it down. But yeah, let's pretend that the old ones were using the Hrud to almost accelerate time for species that they were seeding on planets. Like, yeah, you accelerate it forward. Okay, did this one work out? No, this one wasn't good. Let's accelerate it forward some more. And then the race turns to mush and they try again seeding a new xenos. We don't know that the old ones are doing anything like that, but fun thought.
Yeah, and that would add purpose to the decay, right? Like, I did say earlier that maybe their powers were opposite of decay. Again, that kind of nocturnal sun dichotomy, but it might not be. It might be just the use of their powers for good too. So I kind of like that.
Yeah, the opposite of entropy is what?
Order.
I suppose.
Yeah, but I don't know how.
I don't know if it's order. It's like growth, expansion, life. I don't know. I don't necessarily think order when I think opposite of entropy.
There is a word for the opposite of entropy called negentropy.
Oh, okay.
Entropy.
Well, on that note, let's get into the military, the very orderly military of the Hrud. The Hrud do not maintain armies in the traditional sense, preferring guerrilla warfare, sabotage, and entropy-based assaults to direct confrontation when forced into battle. They fight like living shadows, appearing from the gloom to unleash sudden devastating attacks before fading away into the darkness. Their mastery of temporal distortion makes conventional military response extremely difficult, as Hrud warriors can appear to move at impossible speeds or phase through matter. Their passive aging fields alone are capable of decimating enemy ranks by rotting armor, corroding weapons, and withering living bodies within moments. When gathered for larger conflicts, especially during mass migrations, the Hrud can field enormous numbers. Their warriors often appeared as ragged cloaked figures wielding corroded but lethal weapons, are supported by ancient war machines and entropic devices from their forgotten past. Rumors exist that of Hrud wielding entropy cannons, capable of disintegrating buildings or aging entire squads into dust. That was just a bit of a creative weapon there.
Yeah, the chat saying, just imagine.
Go ahead.
The chat said, just imagine getting hit in the knee and it ages 40 years and you're like, fuck. Like,
I need a hip replacement now.
yeah. God damn it.
Despite the formidable power, they still prefer to strike from ambush, using the natural decay of the battlefield to finish what their initial attacks began. Hrud wars are wars of slow death, not of glory or conquest.
Nice. Yeah. How do you know you're fighting a Hrud or a pile of shit with a cloth on it?
You can't get hard anymore. That's how you know.
You can no longer get hard. Yeah.
Yeah,
You have aged
erectile
out of that.
dysfunction.
Man, one of my favorite all-time ads we ever did. I'm sure people have heard it, but it was for some erectile dysfunction pill, and I got the joy of saying, "Do you have erectile dysfunction like Eric? Try this pill." And I thought it was the funniest thing, and I don't think he was pleased with it, but here we are nonetheless.
And now you've reminded everyone.
Yeah. Oh, man. Galactic relations. The Hrud are largely isolated from galactic politics and conflict, driven more by survival than by ambition. Most major powers view themselves as a pestilence to be exterminated, although their elusiveness and sheer devastation they can unleash make this easier said than done. The Imperium considers the Hrud a minor xenos threat, although Inquisition records acknowledge that Hrud incursions have destroyed worlds and crippled entire sectors. The Tau have attempted contact, but reports suggest such effort ends disastrously, as Hrud presence tend to corrode Tau cities almost immediately. That's so funny. Tau cities are just so soft. Just crumble. Orcs treat the Hrud with uncharacteristic wariness, sensing the unnatural decay they carry. Relations with the Eldar are particularly complex. Some Eldar seem to recognize the Hrud as remnants of ancient times, relics of a lost galactic era when the Ka and other primeval beings held sway. Dark Eldar, by contrast, find the Hrud's entropy fields of time-warping powers abhorrent and dangerous. Necrons, beings of order and immortality, view Hrud's corrupting influence as an anathema, and will sometimes cleanse worlds simply to eliminate them. In the wider galaxy, the Hrud are a forgotten shadow, ignored by one's peril, but feared by those who know the slow, unstoppable death that follows them. Yeah, no one really likes these guys. Even the Eldar are like, yeah, we were friends like 60 million years ago. No. We were neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. The Eldar are probably the most resistant to their decaying effects since Eldar lived so long. Like, sure, they lost a couple thousand years when they got shot with that aging cannon, but they can just shrug that
there's
off.
Many more years where that came from.
Exactly.
Yeah. The one.
Yeah, when we were talking about like neg entropy and order, like, the Necron, I guess, could be viewed as a source of that, like, very meticulous ordering of the galaxy, in which case, yeah, they would be kind of the contrasts and opposites, which does speak to their long history of animosity.
Yeah, like Necron are essentially immortal, they never will die or age out, with the Hrud are quite the opposite. They're just...
Reanimation is a big theme for them, like, the like lasting forever, rebuilding brokenness, like in their warriors and things.
Yeah. The one thing I'm sad I couldn't find when talking about galactic relations is, I swear at one point there was something with the Hrud where they would have human colonies kind of build up around them, and they would get addicted to, like, I don't remember if it was like the sea mist or if it was like sweat off them or what it was exactly, but I do recall that at some point. So maybe, just tuck that away in the back of your mind. Humans like them or get addicted to them, I guess.
Yeah. Even maybe unwillingly, like they're almost compelled, they're drawn towards them.
Yeah. Representation. As for minis, I think the easiest way would just be take like a little circle of green stuff and kind of half compress it, then put another glob on top of it, and keep doing that as you build up its shit mound leg. and then do the same technique for its body and other arms, and there you go. You got a green stuff Hrud.
That certainly is a method, probably the cheapest method. I have some alternatives. Well, first and foremost, I want to get this out of the way. The Hrud in their very first appearance, and we brought this up a lot, it was like a Skaven counterpart to 40k. Part of me wishes that were still the case to some degree. I don't know that I like them now under the Hrud lore that now exists. I think there's something more interesting to do with a Ratman 40k race. But in the spirit of that, if you wanted to do 40k Ratman, you could do it this way, which either you're converting Skaven miniatures, or once again, Mantic Games produces a whole faction of space rats.
Yeah,
which are very cool.
Yeah, they have like a bunch of like ray gun looking things with almost like Tesla coils, but yeah, that would be a cool time gun for sure.
Yeah,
Seeing
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have some really cool models. I swear Mantic should start paying us for shilling for them so much.
Yeah.
But I do have an alternative for the modern interpretation of Hrud. I also didn't mention this, but they almost look like the creature from the Black Lagoon crossed with like tapeworms for their limbs. Like that's very much what
Healthy.
What the official artwork of them looks like, at least the modern artwork of them. But all that being said, in the modern context, the group I would actually, or models I would use, are Necromunda models from the Ash Wastes. The Ash Waste nomads, they have these like robes and like very kind of dirty looking, but their skin and everything is covered up, so you don't really see them underneath. I would definitely use those as Hrud.
I just pulled it up for those watching the live stream and stuff. You can kind of see some pictures here. I'll zoom in a bit.
Yeah, but Ash Waste Nomads 100% would be kind of what I would use to represent Hrud.
Yeah, I know I've seen them before, and I know exactly what you're talking about. I can't quite get a good picture of it, but yeah, for sure. No, that would probably be an interesting starting spot. Add some green stuff. Yeah,
I'd definitely do some conversion work on them, but that would be my base. Like all the tattered robes that they're wearing, like I said, most of the fact that they're all covered up is the biggest element. Kind of speaking again to their Ratman origins, like you see a lot of that in the lore too, of like in the dirty warrens and like how they age and make things decrepit, right? Like they exist like rats exist. Alberta's rat free, so props to our Inquisition.
Good thing about all of Canada right now.
Yeah. So just a little observation. I think Antarctica and Alberta are the only places on Earth without rats.
Fuck yeah.
But again, that speaks to that like that attraction, like wherever humans go, rats tend to follow. So they're kind of like our parasitic
cleaners.
I wouldn't call them cleaners, definitely killers. Black Death. But yeah, like decay usually follows with them, right? Like bad things come with the rat infestations that we tend to bring with us wherever we go.
Yeah.
All right.
Rules wise for these guys, I don't know. There's nothing obvious again. Like they're very unique, and maybe you go the route of like, it would definitely only be kill team worthy again, I would imagine. But yeah, I don't know. I have nothing really good that would like age opponents and like fuck people up like that.
Maybe something that just ignores armor saves. It's really
just like yeah. I've thought about it for many times before, how you'd get these guys on tabletops, but yeah, they just seems like nothing. There's not a lot of debuffing stuff, it seems like, unless it's like. But anyways, whatever. Fuck rules. They change every other day of the week.
Should we get into our next filthy animals, the Jindarii?
Ooh, this is a good one. I'm excited to talk about this one.
All right. So the Jindarii are sentient xenos species known for their nomadic and tribal nature. Functioning as biochemical hunters, they travel the galaxy in search of rich hunting grounds, which they claim as sacred territories. In these areas, they construct temple complexes and organize their warriors into specialized groups, known as oxalthixdals. Oh, shit. Anyone know how to say that?
It looks Aztec. Oxalthictils.
Yeah. These cadres are armed with advanced pulsar and needle weaponry and fight with cunning tactics, striking hard, disappearing swiftly, and luring their enemies into elaborate traps. Though they prefer to stay within their designated territories, the Jindarii are not above launching attacks beyond them when provoked. Each tribe is led by its own war leader, but in times of great conflict, they unite under a single commander to coordinate massive military efforts. Their strategic flexibility and instinct for survival makes them formidable opponents, even for the Imperium's most powerful forces. I'm kind of seeing a theme with these xenos that we're doing tonight. Like all of them, the way they like to fight is more subtle and guerrilla warfare and quick and dirty kind of thing.
I think that's kind of the default for most of minor species, is part of why they're in the minor category. Not all, of course, but it does. You're right. I think that pattern just exists by virtue of the fact that they're smaller threats, so it's hard for them to build full-scale armies and be total war enemies like Necron or Eldar or orcs. But
yeah.
The appearance and biology. The Jindarii possess biomechanical bodies that are not only alien in form, but also capable of astonishing levels of adaptation. When faced with new or overwhelming enemies, they conduct extensive genetic and technological modifications, turning seasoned warriors into massive gene-wrought constructs. These creatures can match Imperial Titans in size and raw strength, only catching opponents off guard with their terrifying presence. So we're talking about the quick hit and run, stealthy, and like, and I was just sticking it to
Titan,
myself.
Jordan.
Yeah,
Or Mark.
it's a stealth Titan.
Yeah.
Just imagine a stealthy warhound Titan stalking one of these stealthy guys. Yeah. This gets cool because they're these biomechanical constructs that eventually they can just build them Titan size, or they could build them super tiny, itsy bitsy. They're highly adaptable. Despite their size, these altered Jindarii retain agility and stealth, enabling them to
Stealth Titan.
Stealth Titan. They always hiding behind fucking bushes and stuff. Fuck. Their combination of biomechanical engineering and cybernetic enhancement speaks to a deeply advanced understanding of both war and survival, making them as one of the more adaptive and dangerous xenos threats in the galaxy.
Yeah, that's so strange. Like, I'm just trying to picture them being Titan-sized. Like, that's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Everything is huge in Warhammer. I can picture it. Everything is just massive.
Yeah, and orcs can get pretty big too, I guess. So they're not alone in that. All right, let's get into their powers and abilities. The Jindari's most notable strength lies in their ability to combine cunning tactics with devastating technology. Their oxalithidals cadres employ advanced weapons such as pulsars and needle rifles, capable of bypassing even hardened armor. Their battlefield approach emphasizes sudden, overwhelming attacks, followed by vanishing into terrain, all while baiting enemies into prepared kill zones. In times of extreme threat, the Jindarii undergo gene enhancement programs, transforming selected warriors into towering behemoths with immense power. These constructs are used as living engines of war, able to challenge even Imperial Titans. Their willingness to evolve mid-conflict ensures that the Jindarii never fight the same way twice, often leaving their enemies unable to adapt in time. Yeah, there used to be a meme about Usarkar Creed used to have a rule where he could deep strike Titans, and that was the stealth Titan thing where it's like hiding behind a lamppost. That was just coming to mind with this, because even the Titan size ones do use like hit and run tactics. They still use stealth and ambush and guerrilla warfare. So
yeah. Skeleton says the only image that I can find of them is the thumbnail for this live stream, and they're not even in there. But yeah, because they're so customizable and different, like they're really anything, man. They could be anything.
I like to think they're so stealthy that
Oh,
you don't know what
can't
they
even
look
see
like.
them. Yeah.
Even
there
the
we go.
Titan-sized ones.
I like the thought too of their needle rifles of these Titan-sized creatures, biomechanical creatures, shooting out like giant spikes. Like I'm talking like redwood tree-sized spikes at things. Fucking tight.
That's pretty brutal.
Okay, so the history of the Jindarii. During the Age of Strife, the Jindarii began establishing proving grounds near the Forge World's Anvilus. As the Mechanicum expanded its presence, Jindarii raids intensified. Their swift strikes and superior tactics posed such a threat that Anvilus found the Titan Legion, known as Legio Vulpa, specifically to combat them. While the Titans initially held the advantage, the Jindarii responded by creating massive gene-wrought warriors to match them, extending the conflict for 7 decades. The climax of this war occurred on the moon of Yith, where the Hizabaru tribe's grand matriarch led a final assault. Towering over 40 meters, she destroyed multiple Titans before falling in battle. In the aftermath, the Jindarii withdrew, leaving a long engraved line of skulls along the river to commemorate their dead. The display deeply affected Legio Vulpa, who would come to be known as the Death Stalkers, in reference to this haunting campaign. And this is all the more reason we need to wipe out all the filthy xenos. So
Everyone, don't risk it, not even once.
Yep.
So this battle with the Legio Vulpa, we talked about them being Titan sized, but honestly, we only know they're Titan sized in this battle. Do they have a true form? Like obviously they do, but we don't know what it is. So, but this is a good example. I thought this was super cool. I just love Titan battles, so fun to see what will happen in this one.
Okay, I hate to say it. Power Rangers definitely comes to mind with like.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Or Gundam Wing or something.
At least Gundams are marginally cooler. I did grow up on Power Rangers, so I'm not going to critique too much. I do have a inspirational theory, but I'll probably save it towards the end of this. But on their appearance and kind of what their influences are.
Okay.
But like I said, I'll wait till the end.
Okay. Keep your secrets. The battle with Legio Vulpa. Among the stars near Anvilus, the Jindarii, nomadic hunter clans born of flesh and machine, had long ruled. Before the coming of mankind, the Jindarii had carved proving grounds across the subsectors, their ancient rites of hunt and war leaving their mark upon countless worlds. Yet with the colonization of Anvilus by the Mechanicum, the balance shifted. The newcomers wrought metal cities and poisoned skies, defiling the sacred hunting lands. In answer, the Jindarii, or the Oxaldols, as they named themselves, took up the hunt. The Tegmata forces of the Anvilus were poorly prepared for the fury of the Oxal. How'd you say that one again? What the fuck is that?
Oxalthictols.
Oxalthictols. The Jindarii, armed with pulsar needles and refined weapons honed by millennia of warfare, struck with precision and cunning. Armor shattered, fortresses fell, and the Machine Lords knew fear. To stem the bleeding, the Mechanicum raised their own hunters, the first demi-legio of the Legio Vulpa. The Death Stalkers were not nimble or wise. They were clumsy god machines built for terror and devastation. The Death Stalkers could not chase the Jindarii across open fields. They turned instead to sacrilege, defiling the sacred temple complex of the clans to draw them into open battle. For a solar decade, the war raged as the Jindarii fought bitterly to defend the spirits of their ancestors. Slowly, the war front was published away from Anvilus pushed away, and the Deathstalkers, multiplying in the number of Forge World, grew fat on stolen time. Yet the Jindarii did not disappear. Ever adaptable, the clans bent their will towards a new craft, fusing their greatest hunters into bioforms, wrought for war, monstrous bodies that riveted the titans of the Deathstalkers, or that rivaled the titans of the Deathstalkers. Though lacking the thunderous guns of their foes, these colossal living colossi moved with impossible swiftness and struck from shadows, embodying the spirit of the hunt even as impossible scale. The conflict entered a new, bloodier chapter. For 7 decades, the sun of war raged without pause. The Deathstalkers, learning bitterly from defeat after defeat, changed their ways. They learned to misdirect, to entrap, to strike without mercy. Their infamous Liberex Tacticae, Vulpa, their Book of Slaughter, owes its soul to the art of the hunt taught by the Jindarii. The end came not with triumph, but with exhaustion, upon the moon of Yethi. Under the ashen sky, the final battle was fought. 32 titans of the Deathstalkers faced the Haibazu, Grand Matriarch, champion of the Jindarii, towering 43 meters tall. She battled for 2 days without ceasing, felling several of the great god engines before she herself was slain, beneath the right of enemy fire. The loss of the matriarch cut deep. Without her, the surviving clan chose exile over annihilation. They left Anvilus behind, seeking new hunting grounds beyond the reaches of mankind's hunger. But before their final departure, the Jindarii marked their passing. Along the great river, they raised a line of their own skulls, each engraved with the last words of the matriarch. Here our greatest blades rest, firm in their belief they knew death's art, taught instead by those who stalk beneath its shroud. From that day forth, the Deathstalkers wore their name as a badge of honor, but the Jindarii knew the truth. It was they who taught the Titans how to hunt, and the death they wrought would forever bear the echo of the Oxodulu's final lesson. Yeah, so fun little story there. Fun Titan Legion too. This Titan Legion eventually does fall to chaos if you're interested in it. But cool backstory of how they kind of get stylized.
Spoilers, Mark. Spoilers. Yeah. And their name is Fox, Vulpine.
Cunning,
The Fox
quick.
Legion. Yeah. All right. Homeworld and galactic geography. The Jindarii are a nomadic people with no fixed homeworld, no fixed address. Instead, they move across the galaxy, establishing hunting territories where resources are plentiful. Upon claiming such a region, they construct temple complexes and assert full dominion over the area. These sites are often treated with religious significance, and the Jindarii will fight relentlessly to protect them from any intrusion. Their movements have brought with them into conflict with multiple factions of the Imperium, especially in subsectors near key Forge worlds. Their roaming nature ensures that they remain elusive and difficult to exterminate entirely. Wherever they go, the Jindarii leave behind war stories, etched in metal and bone, grim reminders of their fierce independence and adaptability.
All right, let's get into their culture and beliefs. The Jindarii are deeply rooted in a tribal culture that reveres the act of the hunt above all else. Their nomadic lifestyle is not born of necessity alone, but of spiritual significance. The pursuit and claiming of hunting grounds is viewed as both a sacred right and a test of worth. Once a region is claimed, the Jindarii establish temple complexes that serve as places of worship, tactical command, and community gathering points. Tribal leadership is decentralized under normal circumstances, with each tribe operating independently. However, when faced with great threats or opportunities, the tribes unite under a single war leader, demonstrating a strong sense of shared identity and purpose.
Yeah. I'm just gonna say it now. The Predators, Yautja. That is 100% what came to mind when we first started reading about them, but I think it's even more so evident at this point. Everything built around their hunting culture, their temple complexes, even the size thing. In the most recent Predator movie, and by recent I mean a few years ago now, or second most recent, I guess, after Prey. I'm a big Alien Predator fan. There is kind of like a sizing up of the Predator as they genetically modify themselves. It was an awful movie, by the way, but that's the point. Where like the newest, most like enhanced Predator was like massive compared to the older Predators, and Predators are already pretty big. So you're looking at like a 10-foot, 12-foot tall Predator.
Oh, nice.
And again, that's stealth aspect, big Predator thing, the hunting thing, temple thing, even the tech thing. If you're trying to kind of put your own spin on the Predator, their tech is almost, I don't want to say biological, but it looks biological, just the way that it appears.
It's biomechanical at the very least. So
yeah. So that influence is certainly there. So 100%, that's kind of where my mind went immediately. Even the name Jindarii and Yautja, like the Predator's alien name is actually Yautja. So
interesting.
Anyways.
I always thought that the Rak Ghoul made a good Predator. Yeah, because they're very similar to this as well. But I think what takes it over the top after reading these guys is the stealth aspect and the temples. For sure. Yeah.
Anyways, Jordan, sorry to interrupt. I just had to jump in there.
No, you're good. Their beliefs heavily emphasize strength, adaptability, and honor in combat. Defeated enemies are often memorialized through symbolic gestures, such as engraved skull line left on the Yeath, demonstrating both respect for the fallen and pride in their victories. The Jindarii culture, martial prowess, is not just a means of survival, but of a spiritual duty, with the greatest warriors undergoing genetic ascension to become living icons of the species' tenacity. Through these practices, the Jindarii maintain a fierce cultural cohesion, even as they roam the galaxy without a homeworld.
Yeah, again, even the trophy taking, honor in the kill, like all that's very Predator.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, like we'll get to the minis eventually, so I got questions what we would do with them.
Okay.
Technology. The Jindarii possess advanced technology that blends biological engineering with mechanical innovation. Their standard weaponry includes pulsar and needle-based arms, devices optimized for stealth, precision, and lethality. These tools allow Jindarii warriors to penetrate even the hardened armor of Imperial forces. Moreover, their understanding of genetics biomechanics is highly developed. When necessary, they can reforge their own bodies into monstrous constructs capable of battling even the titans of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Rather than relying purely on mechanical constructs or vehicles, the Jindarii favor personal augmentation and evolutionary adaptation. Their greatest technological achievement are the Dream-Rot warriors, massive, enhanced individuals designed to rival Imperial Titans in battle. These transformations showcase the Jindarii's pragmatic, ever-shifting approach to warfare, emphasizing that technology is not something separate from their lives, but an extension of their very being. Their ability to tailor themselves to meet new challenges has made them one of the more unpredictable threats in the galaxy. Am I just picturing incorrectly? Does the Predator have a needle-type weapon that shoots out of his wrist, or...?
There's a bunch of different weapons they use, but yeah, a lot of them are blade based, so like projectiles. Like I think their spear, they use a lot of spears that claw, almost like a lightning claw, a retractable lightning claw. But yeah, they do fire. I believe they fire some needle based weapons too, and they have the shoulder mounted plasma blaster. But like there's tons of weapons in their arsenal. They have the nets. It's just like an infinite.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
But yeah, even the genetic manipulation and like adapting to their hunted prey is a Predator thing as well. So yeah, these guys just reek of Predator to me in a good way. All right, let's get into their military. The The Jindarii military is organized around cadres known as whatever, each consisting of highly trained and heavily armed hunters. Their combat philosophy emphasizes rapid strikes, feints, and ambush tactics, using terrain and misdirection to their advantage. Though they fight with the appearance of chaos, each assault is a carefully orchestrated maneuver meant to lure, confuse, and ultimately destroy their enemies. Their equipment, sleek, potent, and biologically attuned, is specially designed to complement these strategies. I just picture a movie of a Cetacean strike team getting harassed by Jindarii. We all know where this is going. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Sly Rambo comes out of nowhere and saves the day.
Yeah, there you go.
Or Marble.
Yeah. When facing overwhelming force, the Jindarii adapt by evolving their military structure. Select warriors undergo genetic reforging, growing into towering beings capable of directly challenging massive war machines like the Titans of the Imperium. This flexibility allows the Jindarii to escalate conflicts in ways that catch even seasoned commanders off guard. Their ability to shift from guerrilla tactics to full-scale brute force confrontation has earned them a reputation as one of the galaxy's most flexible and dangerous xenos militaries. Yeah, that's interesting. Even the Tyranids like need time to adapt, but it looks like these guys can do it a lot faster.
Interesting.
I would say of like all the xenos we've covered tonight, they seem to be the most militaristic.
Yeah. It's weird too, the overlap between like militarism and hunting cultures. Like, are they the same? Like, that's like a bigger question that I don't know that I can answer. But like, does one naturally lead to the other? Are they separate and should be considered separate things? Like, one's dedicated to conquest of other people, while one is more concerned with hunting for its survival. I don't know, but it is an interesting question.
For sure. All right, galactic relations. The Jindarii are almost universally regarded as a hostile xenos threat by the Imperium of Man. Their raids against human worlds, particularly those near Forge World and Malice, have left a deep mark on Imperial memory. The founding of the Legio Vulpa itself was a direct response to the Jindarii menace, highlighting the scale of the threat they posed during the Age of Strife. Although the Mechanicum eventually forced the Jindarii to withdraw, the conflict was long, bloody, and costly, cementing the species' reputation as relentless and resourceful enemies. Beyond humanity, little is known about the Jindari's interactions with other xeno species. Their focus on establishing and defending hunting grounds suggests they might come into conflict with any power that challenges their claims. Given their nomadic habits, it is likely that many local powers have experienced brief but violent encounters with Jindarii warbands, often ending before the xenos could be fully studied or understood. In the greater galactic picture, they remain an unpredictable and dangerous anomaly. Yeah, they just got to get wiped out. That's just all there is to it.
What one spot for them in the Imperium, and that's under the boot.
Precisely.
Cool. We got one more section here that we read through. I just put a link in the description for a call-in, but I'll carry on here. Current status. Following their defeat at the Battle of Yeth, where their Grand Matriarch and the bulk of their forces were slain by Legio Vulpa, the Jindarii largely disappeared from Imperial records. Their withdrawal marked the end of their campaign against Anvilus, but it did not signify extinction. The Jindarii are a nomadic people, capable of vanishing from the galactic stage only to reappear generations later in new territories, ready to re-establish fresh hunting grounds. Today, the Jindarii are presumed to still exist. Hidden among forgotten regions of the galaxy, their past campaigns have left lasting scars, and the legend continues to be cited in the Mechanicus lore as a warning about the dangers of underestimating adaptable Xenos foes. Whether they are rebuilding their strength or merely waiting for new hunting grounds to appear, the Jindarii remain a lingering, if shadowed threat beyond the Imperium's guarded borders. Yeah, cool. So they could be around. They probably are around doing something. They are stealthy, so you wouldn't know they're around even if they were around.
Yep. It's true.
When we're talking about minis and representation, minis, you could lean hard into it, like, and try to pretend that you found their true form, which is a predator mini, and you could buy those predator minis, and you could.
I'm gonna look that up right now.
So
Yeah.
fun fact. Protoss Games used to do an AVP tabletop game, and I did buy all the Predator minis because they discontinued it, and I wanted them really bad.
Yeah.
So I
You
have them.
I think I've seen
you actually
those.
just go grab them and show them on your.
Oh, they're
camera.
buried deep in my pile of shame. I don't think I can fish them out fast enough. Maybe in a future episode, or I'll send Mark pictures. But they're really cool miniatures. I love them. I've always loved the Predator, like the aesthetics and everything too. So there are also 3D printed minis too that people have made over the years that are really cool. So
Yeah, it looks like I'm looking at a bunch of just online. A bunch of people, Etsy and stuff, have just 3D printed stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe you just do like a simple head swap, just to kind of.
Yeah,
make it
not one.
Yeah. But you definitely start there. That's definitely, I think, the starting point.
Yeah. Who is it? Puppets of War does, or at least they used to have a really cool miniature that they don't produce anymore. That was like a body torso thing that looked almost like a Chaos Terminator, but it looked like it could be alien. And they do have a couple of custom alien heads if you're really looking to do something different. The nice thing about not having rules is like you could really just make it your own.
Yeah.
Like, find miniatures and just bash together all kinds of different pieces.
And especially for this one, where it's like, how do you represent a race that, like, every time you see it, it's something different, and everyone is different from the one next to it, and It would be cool though if you really wanted, maybe the rules are just a Titan. You go big with it, Yeah, you put down not a 32 Predator, 32 millimeter Predator, but you put down like a GI Joe 112 scale Predator, and then you got yourself a nice Titan. Cool. Well, that's the episode notes. Let's get call-ins. The first little call-in will be Lupical says, Mark, what base color should I do as shield? I don't know, man. What shield? Who's shield? Ask me again, but nicer next time. Skeleton, let's get you to the stage first. Hey, welcome.
Howdy. Can you hear me all right?
Oh, perfect. Loud and clear. So are you a filthy xenos sympathizer? Should we be reporting you to the Inquisition, or...
I think you should. I kind of like them, especially in 40K. Do I like them to the eyes of the Imperium? Probably not so much. But
which of the three were your favorite?
I think the Fra'al definitely were my favorite. Out of the three, they kind of remind me of like the classic alien that goes back into history. You're talking about like Roswell, aliens, that sort of stuff, and their interaction with humanity kind of seems similar, where they just kind of pop in and out. They're more of a menace and a specter rather than something in your face. So I really like the idea of 40K having that equivalent in there as a species, and I would love to see more about them.
Yeah, so then that opens up. Sorry, Jordan.
There's a few science fiction properties kind of include gray aliens, like Stargate is one of them.
Perfect Dark.
Yeah, Perfect Dark. There's a lot that include. I'm with you though. I think they're my favorite of the episode too. I do like 40K is technically in our universe, so you should have that representation of that, at least alien, and you could have, if it's a minor xenos, then so be it. So
Yeah,
It-
and I mean, Tau should be minor xenos, technically. I mean, the fact that these guys are minor seems almost arbitrary. I'd almost rather see the Fra'al than Tau, in the lore.
I always
it's-
did feel that the Tau kind of filled that role of the gray alien, honestly.
really.
really?
Yeah. Just their looks kind of being like technologically advanced. Like that was always the vibe I kind of got a little bit from them.
You know what though, with the Fra'al is that they're like a psyker race and heavily involved with the warp and use the warp all the time. If you follow at all, which I do because I'm a nerd on this stuff, sort of the UFO lore, it's very bizarre and resembles something more like some sort of consciousness phenomena as opposed to like a literal physical phenomena that people are experiencing. So the Fra'al seem more consistent with that, just purely based on the fact that they are so heavily involved with using the warp. So
Yeah. There's a game called Destroy All Humans where you kind of play a gray alien that's like harassing humanity.
yeah,
And like he has like a lot of technology, but he also has psychic powers. And I think they tie that in a lot with like the big brain and like
yeah.
Yeah,
so
XCOM is another one that I've played a lot where definitely when you think of green aliens, there's definitely been like a psychic component to it throughout culture.
yeah. Are there any other aliens from our kind of reality
Yeah.
mythos? Sure, that's the word. That you would like to see? Do we want to see like lizard men in
Oh, yeah.
40K somehow? Okay,
we already do.
okay.
We got the slan.
Yeah,
I'm
maybe.
sure. Yeah, I'm
Alien.
sure we have. There's also the Nordics. Have you heard of the Nordics? They're like
Oh yeah.
the tall, blonde, like white eyes alien.
Okay,
My
that's why
ancestors.
I love Perfect Dark because they combine both, where the Nordics also appear and they're the
Yeah.
what do you call them?
Yeah, I
I
know what
found
you're saying. I don't remember either, but
Man, that seems like an old game for the Nordics to kind of be appearing. That seems like internet
No, man.
lore more so than like yeah.
No,
Yeah.
dude, the alien lore goes deep, like real life alien lore.
Yeah.
oh yeah, it's crazy. Fuzz in the chat says the Nordics are just Eldar. Yeah, could be.
Hmm.
I feel like the Nordics are more human looking, but I guess the Eldar aren't totally dissimilar to humans. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I would like maybe take like some of the history, the mythos, things like Sasquatch, the Yeti, Loch Ness monster.
Oh yeah,
Make those aliens too. Throw them into the lore that
Yes.
they've been here just
all
messing
the
with us
cryptos.
too.
Yeah, all the cryptos. Turn them into miners, races.
Yeah.
Oh, have you guys? If you guys want to go down a little rabbit hole, go look into the Kentucky goblins.
I will
not
do no
gonna-
such thing, Jordan.
I'm not going to go into it here. Just go into that and then think, what kind of miners race can I make out of this?
That's so funny.
Is there a
Well,
conspiracy with KFC where the Kentucky goblins are really what the chickens are made of, or aliens?
I know that
I don't know,
the
but I hope
KFC is made of people if you watch their commercials. Yeah, what the fuck is this? Fun. Okay, well, that's what I'm gonna get up to tonight. Go to fall asleep to Kentucky Goblins. Well, Skeleton, any other thoughts there?
I would just, one of my favorite things about getting into 40K is every time you learn something new, no matter how minor, you just want more lore about it. And I
Every
think
time.
it's what I'm really starting to
True.
grow to love about it is every little nitpicky thing. I'm just like, write another 10 books just about this and I'd be happy. So, write a book, write a dozen books about the Jindarii, give me more,
Yes. Yeah, no, there's a lot of cool ones. Love it. Like you said, man, it's so fun just looking over and under any rock, and you're just like, that's pretty cool under there. Lots of fun stuff. All right, I think we will say goodbye to you. Thanks for calling in.
Absolutely. Have a great night.
Adios.
See ya.
And let's get Fuzz on real quick because I just want to know what his favorite Xenos was. He's putting down the brush. And yo, Fuzz, what's good?
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect.
Sweet.
You know, I want to know either your favorite Xenos, which one would you want to hold at night, or which one would you want to annihilate?
Oh man, so I just just thinking of the 3 from tonight. If I was going to go to sleep snuggling one of those Xenos, I would say the Jindarii, because the Jindarii could biologically engineer themselves to be the most snuggly companion.
Oh,
They have the
so
technology.
soft.
So just the softest, plushiest Xenos.
The Fra'al would probably be probing your butt if you.
They would, they would be the friskiest of the Xenos to have in bed at night.
Yeah,
I really did I liked all of them for different reasons. Like the Fra'al, I think, were the most interesting, especially as like an RPG antagonist, because they were so like decentralized. They could be anywhere doing anything. And then like the Hrud is just this like almost like boogeyman of Xenos that you hear about in legends, that just 3 Hrud roll in and all of a sudden your city is crumbling down and everybody is withered into dust.
yikes. Yeah, what a horrifying alien, really. Like, you would never want to see one ever.
No, I mean,
because, yeah, you'd be fucked.
Yeah, they just look disgusting, and then your eyes age so fast they melt out of your head.
Excellent. Okay, so you want to cuddle the Jindarii, and which one do you want to exterminate?
Probably the Fra'al, because I think the Hrud do actually play an important part in the galaxy's ecosystem.
Yeah, they're the third option of marry.
Right,
So
yeah,
you
the
get to
Fra'al are
marry
sick.
the. Yeah. Yeah, no, all very cool. There's a lot of minor Xenos that we have ahead of us. Do you have one that you're most looking forward to?
Not off the top of my head, because the Hrud are one that like pops into my brain a lot, and the Demiurge, which you covered yesterday, which I do need to go listen to that episode. Those are the 2 that usually occupy more of my, like, if I'm thinking about a minor Xenos.
They're your Roman
Yes.
Empire.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the Hrud or my Roman Empire, or like ones that you've already covered in the past, like the Jakara, I think are really interesting.
Yeah. I think the next episode's going to be a banger. It's Jakaro, Hrud, and the Crave, which is the Xenos that I like to use for my Unbound idea. So it's going to be a fun episode.
Okay, I haven't heard of the Crave, and I guess including the Hrud and the minor Xenos, then I really fucking like the Hrud.
Yeah.
They're very interesting.
Yeah. Love them. Cool. Well, any closing thoughts there?
The Tau are a major Xenos because they are the king of the minor Xenos. I don't know.
Okay. Not the best way to go out, but it's the way you chose.
You'll have a good night, guys.
Yeah, you do, Fuzz.
Yeah.
See ya.
All right, and then there are the 3. All right. What a fun episode. I love learning about the minor Xenos. I love all the different little connection points, inspiration points. I love trying to find models and rules for them. It's going to be a fun couple weeks here. But that is all for tonight. But you can go find us other places. Come check out me at Lorehammer Listen to Lord podcast. I do a separate podcast where I read homebrew lore. So come check that out.
And we also have the Star Lores podcast, where you can listen to Christian and I wax poetic about the Star Wars universe. It's a good and fun time.
And there are tons of minor Xenos in that one. So.
Yeah.
And May the 4th is coming up, so celebrate your May the 4th by listening to every single episode of Star Lores, all like 110 episodes or whatever.
To achieve that, you have to listen at times 5 speed to do it in one day, but you can't.
No,
you have
you
to-
have,
you have to
you
do
have
it.
to. No, you have to listen in its unadulterated pure form.
And that is times 6 speed when Christian's talking, 0.5 when Jordan's talking. That's the true form of the podcast, I think. Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks everyone. Sorry everyone to my Patreon members. Normally I read out names and stuff. I've been a little lax on it. I know Patreon members are coming in. Maybe next week we'll do a nice big load of but thank you to all the Patreon members for helping keep the show going. If you want to subscribe, just go to the Lorehammer Patreon or click the links in the description below. Well, thanks again. Adios, everyone. We'll see you on the next one.